Well, hey, welcome back to Theologians in Cars Drinking Libations. I'm here with my good friend Jason Bense, and he is the senior pastor at Lutheran Church of Our Redeemer and Gethsemane Lutheran. Like, you have to be pretty awesome to be leading two churches. That's a badge of honor that you have to. You're leading the charge with two churches, not just one.
Well, I've been in Sacramento 9 years, coming on, and received the call to pastor Lutheran Church of Our Redeemer, and we're just all partnering together so much, doing things with Gethsemane Lutheran and leading worship and studies together, that being only 9 speed bumps away, 1 mile apart from each other, and doing a lot of shared similar ministry. When Pastor Vern Holmes retired, it made sense for them to not call another pastor, but continue on our growing relationship
journey together
between the two churches.
But as per usual with our tradition, we begin with discussing our choice of libations. So Jason, what did you end up choosing for our drive this
iced coffee
morning?
on a hot day in Sacramento.
Iced coffee, and so that's probably the main significance to choosing the iced coffee today, I would assume. Any other motivations?
Iced, definitely. When you said to pick maybe an appropriate drink, I think Lutherans, I've noticed at any convention, gathering, seem to go through the pot of coffee faster than anyone can keep up with coffee. Some things are just cultural, I suppose, and I don't know if I can put a finger on it, but I love coffee.
Yes, and so in particular Lutherans.
It seems that way. I've noticed like Episcopals drink tons of tea. The conventioners or conferences can never keep with the tea, and Lutherans coffee. I don't know if it's a Northern European cultural background, what it is, but
what about Lutherans and beer, though, as well? There's some roots there as well.
In Martin Luther's writings, that's often the case.
He was a fan.
There are some Lutherans that don't drink coffee, but I love coffee.
Well, I got a vanilla latte, iced vanilla latte, and I suppose my main motivation behind that was the same thing. It's hot in Sacramento today. It's supposed to be 99 degrees. So those of you who are watching this and you are in a cooler location and you're looking to warm up, feel free to book a flight and come out to the Central Valley here in California.
It's a dry heat. It's a nice heat.
It's a very nice.
It's not humid heat. It's a very nice heat.
It's a very nice heat. Well, very good. Well, Jason, tell us a little bit more about your journey as a theologian. When was the earliest? What's the earliest recollection that you have of when you heard about God?
So
that works. Yeah,
that's good. I'd like to share about an early memory of God, or what's got me thinking about God. And primarily, I think my sense of God has been a lot of questions and mystery associated with God. I was raised in the church, going to a church, but I often didn't really understand what it's about, and I had a lot of questions, not just about the church, but life. And so talking about God was a place to ask about something bigger and mysteries beyond the reality here. I was always fascinated with the concepts of time, like when did time start, when does a time end, what does infinite mean, what does finite mean, the beginnings, the end of things, but also just questions about what's happening in the church, what's happening in my life or the lives of others. So God was a place where I could be open to mystery and awe and something beyond myself, I'd say.
That's great, because sometimes people associate faith and the study of God with dogma, with things that are already decided, and so for you it sounds like it was a little bit different, in that what drove you was really the mystery of it and the openness of it, the questions that you would have.
And that continued on in my life of faith and study of theology throughout my life. Is the more I tried to understand and study God, the less certainty I had, and more being open more and more to God's working. And seminary is a place where you expect, or in study of theology, you come and learn answers or certainty. And anytime I thought of an answer, it would just be smashed. And I think about all new perspectives that I couldn't even imagine before.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit more about what were some of your early memories, and then maybe even going through seminary and so forth. What did you learn about how to study, if we use that word, how to study or explore God?
Right. Well, the tools I was given from the church, my family upbringing, you study God with the traditional means of learning about God, the Holy Scriptures, or the prayer life, or devotional life, or but I think seminary in my life has also taught me through study of like clinical pastoral education that the human life is a living document to see how God's working in not only my life but the lives of my friends, my families, my neighbors, the strangers. How's God's working in their life as well? But I think also I learned a lot from history, digging back in where, unfortunately, humans have hurt other humans, or in history, or ways that the martyrs and others fought for justice and life and faith. Has also been a place where I've seen how God's been at work through time, and even today in my life as well. So.
Yeah. What's something that you have recently been studying and that you've really become passionate about? Well, this is a time for our Theologians in Cars Drinking Libations, a new segment where we call Preach It.
Yeah.
So you get, usually most of our conversation, we want to focus on the hows. But what is something from some of your studies, whether it's engaging with other people? I really like what you had to say there too, by the way. It's that other people's lives also become a sacred text of sorts that we explore in understanding who God is. And history and the like. But so from whatever field of or whatever form of study you've engaged in, what's something of lately that caught your attention and your heart, and that you've been wanting to share? Maybe you've already preached on it recently. What's something that's burning?
I got on fire in the pulpit here this past week. It's become more of a passion that I feel needs to get out right now. And it was clear from the pulpit. But one impetus was, and maybe one headline that was just recently in the news, is our President Donald Trump called immigrants on the southern border. He used the word in a couple of phrases. Animals was a term he used. And I read that, and then I also read it in the context of some others and started preaching it. Desmond Tutu is talking about the notion of what do we need for peace in our world, for order, for life to function. And his basic notion, what he referred to, he says, we need to recognize the humanity in one another. And what a challenge that is to see the humanity. It was just right after that the presiding bishop, Michael Curry of the Episcopal Church, he preached at the royal wedding, and then he hit the national TV circuit after that and had a variety of interviews, including one on CNN. And his quote on CNN, what he said is that no matter our station in life, no matter where we come from, we actually, he said, all come from the same God. And he said, the last time I checked, even in the world of biology, if we have the same parent, that makes us brothers and sisters. Whether we're royal or not, whether we're poor or not, whether we're black or brown or white or not, no matter our station in life, we're all related. And he said, and that means then that I'm my sister's keeper and my brother's keeper and my friends. We'd have a very different world if we all lived like that. And some of the African Swahili language and all can understand a lot better what it means that we're brothers and sisters, that what it is to love our neighbor, that who is our neighbor. So I share that same message at the Interfaith Iftar here in the month of Ramadan.
Yep.
Shared it at our church gathering this past week, in what it means to love our neighbor. Shared it from the pulpit, and it's a challenging message even for me, because there are sometimes, when there's friends or people we like, we know that literally our brain lights up when we see their chemicals in our brain. But there's some people we just don't see with our brain or our chemicals because they're not like us. We can't relate to them. But I think the real calling we have is, if we're going to love God, we've got to first love our neighbor. And Jesus calls us, says that's the greatest commandment. I think that's what the essence and core of what faith and God has to be about, is teaching us to see our neighbor, to love one another. And it's not an easy message, not one I'm good at or perfect at, but that's the passion on me right now.
Yeah.
Is
I had a similar
love.
thought or conviction lately, just in terms of it's really hard when I see or hear individuals or groups, like you quoted earlier with the president and his comments, dehumanizing a community that I'm passionate about. It's really tempting in that environment to turn right around and want to dehumanize him or other people who are thinking like he does, even though I strongly disagree. I think things that are being said are morally wrong and even reprehensible. But I think that one of the challenges for me in all of that is, do I then use that as an excuse to dehumanize other people
who I disagree with?
And that's a challenge, because but I think it's a challenge that I personally have to overcome. Otherwise, I'm gonna in essence be a hypocrite and basically promote the same kind of mentality, but just with a different group of people.
Sure, but we all do it. The scribes and the Pharisees dehumanized Jesus, and Jesus is the great humanizer in some ways, to teach us what God being human means in the incarnation. And but we all do it. It's part of being human. We all dehumanize, and how to begin more and more to see the humanity in one another, especially our enemies and those that we can't understand or don't understand.
What is, if somebody happens to be watching this or listening to this, and they have never really, maybe they just grew up in a different environment where they weren't exposed at all to any kind of religious conversation. I actually prefer the word faith over religion, but any kind of faith conversation. And they're hearing this. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who's just saying, I want this to be a part of my journey. I want to grapple and understand more personally and how this might relate to my life. What's something that you would say to them as far as a starting point in beginning that journey?
Sure. And there's so many starting points, and I'm sure many others could brainstorm, but I think one obvious one is, and it can be a little scary to do, but I commend trying it, is just go to a local faith community, to a church of any sort, to a mosque, to a synagogue, and show up and meet people and see what they experience at that time. But it can be scary, but take that challenge and find what's in their neighborhood and go meet neighbors in that sense, and show up to a worship church and to a worship experience and see what they experience.
Yeah. And probably in all of that, maintain that curiosity that drove you, that mystery, that sense of
ask questions,
of drive to ask questions like you started with, and it sounds like you're continuing on in. It sounds like that, if anything, that thirst and that desire that drive to continue to ask questions is even stronger with you now than maybe it was even when you were younger and beginning that journey. I don't know if that sounds about right for you, but
the more I learn, the more I realize I don't learn
Yeah.
or know. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, it's the age-old saying, right? The older I get, the more I know how little I know, and it seems like that is always the case. That life's great humbler is just more of life. Like the more life you have, the more questions that come to the surface, and but it's good to just keep asking those questions. Well, I think that you've heard some really great advice for those of you who are watching or listening to this episode of Theologians in Cars Drinking Libations from Jason Bense. I want to encourage you, if you are here in the Sacramento area, if you're in the Art and Arcade area, go out and hear more and listen and share some of what your journey is with some of the folks at his church. And the two churches, both
Look
Gethsemane
me up and let's have a conversation.
and
Sure.
Exactly. Let me tell you, it's not the first time I've had a conversation with this guy, and I'm always encouraged and inspired by them. So anyways, but Jason, I just want to thank you again for hopping on this little journey around the streets of Art and Arcade here in Sacramento to talk a little bit about our journey in the study of God. So I hope you have a good rest of your day. Did you enjoy it? You still
Thanks
got a little
for the
bit
coffee,
left.
Kirt, yes.
Oh, no, you're most welcome. I've still got to finish up my latte. We'll try to stay cool here in California here in 99 degrees. That's what I heard. Not quite 100. So we shouldn't complain.
We're cooling off after
And
this
we're
weekend. Yes.
we're cooling off. So
Yes.
anyways, well, take care, folks, and we'll see you again another time on the next installment of Theologians in Cars Drinking Libations.